just two videos about the G sign. You can see during quad activation, the patella translates laterally and tilt a little bit. So this is the G sign. It's a lack of patellar engagement. Your patella is not in front of your trochlea, so when your quad activates, then your patella will translate laterally. So you get a knee with normal engagement in flexion and close to extension. During quad activation, you get a patella translation. There is two origins of the G sign, patella alta and a trochlear dysplasia, mostly low grade. For reminders, patella alta is the second factor of instability and represents 1/3 of your patients. And you can find some indirect sign on MRI when you scroll on axial slices because you will not find any patella in front of the trochlea and any trochlea in front of your patella. So you can say that there is a disengagement of your patella from the trochlea. But to talk about patella alta, you need some objective value. And finally, how do we define the patella high? You need to use some index. You need a lateral knee X-ray and some index, and we use always the Caton Deschamps index, which the patella alta is defined for every values of more than 1.2. Thanks to GPs, most of the time your patients came to your visit with an MRI already done before you asked it, so you have to use it. We describe the sagittal patellar engagement index, which allows to quantify the patellar engagement, as Max said, and you just have to measure your trochlear length and your patella length and make it as a ratio. Sometimes it's more sensitive for G sign as patella height ratio because you are going to proceed your MRI in full extension, and this is the position where your patella will translate, so you will see better the malengagement. And in case of G sign, you always need to perform both exam and look at both because sometimes you will get a normal patellar height ratio using the Caton Deschamps, but if you get a bad engagement, then you need to treat them as a patella alta, even if the patellar height ratio are good. The second origin is the trochlear dysplasia, and you know there is a big story around trochlear dysplasia, mostly in Lyon and with my mentor, David Dejour. And here we are talking to low-grade trochlear dysplasia, so type A and C. But first, to be allowed to speak about dysplasia, you need good imaging. The most aim is to get a true lateral view, so you need to get two superimposed posterior condyles, and it's the same for the axial view, which needs to be at 30-degree flexion to measure your sulcus angle, and for that you need to get a 1/3, 2/3 of your trochlear shape. Once you will have some good imageries, you will look at every sign of the trochlear dysplasia in order to classify it. The first sign is the crossing sign, which is present in almost all of your patients. You will see a cross between your trochlear groove and your femoral condyle. Here you can see the yellow point, which means the crossing sign on the right imaging. Once you will have your crossing sign, you will go to look at every other pillars of the trochlear dysplasia. The first one is the double contour, which is sign of an hypoplastic medial facet. And the second one is the supratrochlear spur, which represents a real ski jump for your patella and make it dislocate. This supratrochlear spur means you get an high-grade trochlear dysplasia. So once you have looked at your all risk factors for patellar instability on your trochlea, you can classify your trochlea. Here you are going to see on type A and C of trochlear dysplasia, so we'll find only crossing sign and double contour. We can't have a bump because we do not have high-grade trochlear dysplasia. And with these risk factors, we are going to use the menu à la carte in order to treat them. So if you get a patella alta with an index of more than 1.2 or a patellar engagement, which can be negative, then you will distalize your tibial tuberosity and will proceed your MPFL plasty exactly as Mark is doing it. But if you get a normal patellar eye ratio and a normal patellar engagement, then you can proceed an isolated MPFL, but it's really rare in case of G sign. But talking about G-sign make us, we have to talk also about the abnormal patellar tracking, which can be a dislocation in extension and a dislocation in flexion. If we look at this knee, we can see a real abnormal patellar tracking. It's not only a G-sign, you don't just have a translation at the end of the extension, you really have an abnormal tracking. So every abnormal tracking are always linked to high-grade trochlear dysplasia, which means type B and D of the de jure trochlear dysplasia. If you look at this image, you can see a huge preeminence with a convex trochlea, a double contour, which means you get an hypoplasty of your medial facet, and of course, an eccentric native groove. You get here an high-grade trochlear dysplasia, which is type D of the de jure classification. If you look at the X-ray, you will find every pillars of the trochlear dysplasia, and you can easily imagine that the trochlear bump will impinge with the patella. So, if we go back to your classification, you are in type B and D of your classification, and you will find the supratrochlear spur, meaning you are in high-grade trochlear dysplasia. And because of you are in high-grade trochlear dysplasia, you need to treat it, and you need to treat it with an open deepening trochloplasty. This trochlea, which we just said is convex, preeminent, and with an eccentric native groove, need to be removed in order to get a normal patellar tracking. You can see on the right imaging, after the opening deepening trochleoplasty, we get a good sulcus angle, and of course, we get a trochlea flat to the anterior femoral cortex. De jure describes the deepening trochleoplasty with two aims: create a new groove, but also remove the preeminence in order to get no bump anymore. Oh, sorry. So the first step is to remove the preeminence and the supratrochlear spur, which delete the skid jump and make your patella get a normal tracking. And the second one is to create a deeper groove with cartilaginous trochlea to create a new sulcus angle in order to improve stability. So the first one leads you to a normal tracking, and the second one improves the stability of your patella. After looking at the trochlear dysplasia in case of abnormal maltracking, the second point you need to look is the extensor mechanism length. Because this is the point we'll define if you get a patellar dislocation in flexion or in extension. If you look here, you can see a patella dislocate in flexion and which reduce in extension. It's the same here. In every dislocation in flexion, you get a short quadriceps length and an high-grade trochlear dysplasia every time. So the patella follows the shortest way because the quadriceps is too short, and the shortest way is the dislocated way. So during clinical exam, it's impossible to maintain the patella in front of the trochlea because there is no trochlea and because of the shortness of your extensor mechanism. In case of the quadriceps shortness is distal, you can perform a patellar tendon lengthening in order to increase it, or a proximalization of the tibial tuberosity, but you can perform it only if your caton is not too low because you'll get a patellar tendon still short at the end of the surgery. If the shortness is more proximal and you get a normal patellar high, then you can perform a quadriceps lengthening as VY-plasty, or in more major cases, you can proceed a Judy procedure, which is a complete detachment of the quadriceps muscle from the pelvis to the distal insertion, but it's only in like pediatric cases and really syndromic cases. The third risk factor is the extensor mechanism alignment, which is looked with the TTTG. There is two ways to look at it: on CT with a threshold of 20 millimeters, or on MRI with a threshold of 13 millimeters. Be careful because it's not the same threshold, and when you measure it, you need to be really precise, because if you miss like 1 or 2 or 3 millimeters, you can do not proceed the medialization, and your patella will dislocate again, and the surgery will fail. And of course, at the end of surgery, you will always perform an MPFL plasty in 100% cases. Do not forget that this MPFL plasty needs to be done at the end of surgery and need to be associated to every other procedures. The aim of the MPFLplasty is to be as much anatomic as possible, and we always discuss about the perfect placement on the femoral point, but it's really easy understood that if you get a patella alta or a trochlear bump, then even if you practice your MPFL, but without associated procedure, it can be in anatomic position. So for sure, your MPFL will fail and your patient will dislocate again. It's the same if you have a wrong placement in your femoral point. So if you want to gain the patellofemoral gold medal in Paris next summer for the Olympic game, you need to know every risk factors for patellar instability, and you need to treat them all in order your patella will dislocate. And the main point of this topic is to go back to the menu à la carte and always treat every risk factors separately. So here, for example, G sign is like low-grade trochlear dysplasia, so no trochlear procedure. Patella alta, so you will distalize low tibial tuberosity, and then you your TTTG, and at the end, of course, you will proceed your MPFLplasty. So in conclusion, you need, in order to treat your patellofemoral instability, the anatomical abnormalities to allow the better pattern of patella tracking, and you need to change the loading pattern to optimize the joint for healing. And if you just have to go back home with some message, you need to know every pillars of the trochlear dysplasia in order to classify it, and if needed, perform a trochleoplasty. Thank you.